Shalom. Shalom, shalom, Israel. My name is Yashar Yehuda, and the title of this video is Edification on Doeg the Edomite and Obed Edom the Gittite. Okay, first I want to start off by getting the scripture. All right, that scripture is going to be in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. And, well, let me get that. Hold on one second. Okay, it says, study to show thyself approved unto Elohim, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. All right, so that's what we are supposed to be all about, is rightly dividing this word of truth. We are not supposed to eisegete text, that is, put your own understanding or your own will into the text that we are going to be reading. All right, so you let the text speak for itself, and you let Scripture interpret Scripture, which is precept upon precept. That's how the Israelites do things, and how we get the understanding of hermeneutics and exegesis of Scripture. So that was 2 Timothy 2, verse 15. Study to show thyself approved. All right, so I will be coming from the King James Bible and the historical account of the Israelite historian Josephus. So anybody that doesn't have the book of Josephus, and you're an Israelite or you're a Christian is trying to get a deeper understanding, you need to get this particular book. That's the complete works of Josephus. And he gives the whole understanding of the scripture. He had access to ancient texts, the ancient scrolls, and he gives the all the way from Adam all the way down to Malachi. He gives the Bible. He gives the translation of the Bible and his eyewitness take of the events that happened in the first century, because this man, he lived during the first century. Okay, so again, it is my endeavor to bring clarity to the body of Hamashiach, to the fact that Doeg, the chiefest of the herdsmen that belonged to King Saul, was not an Edomite, but in fact he was a Syrian, and that Obed Edom, the keeper of the Ark of the Covenant, could not possibly be an Edomite. So I'm going to bring out those two facts. I'm going to be speaking on those two people, Doeg, the so-called Edomite, which in fact he was Doeg the Syrian, and Obed Edom, which people misinterpret and misunderstand scripture, and they attribute Obed Edom to being an Edomite, when in actuality Obed Edom was of the Levites. Okay. All right, so let me get a picture here. All right, at the end I will also be touching on Deuteronomy 23 and 7, but I'll get back to that. All right, so first I want to get the scripture that's dealing with Doeg. That's 1 Samuel. So that's 1 Samuel chapter 21, verse 7. All right, it says, now a certain man of the servants of Saul, King Saul, was there that day and detained before Yahuwah, and his name was Doeg, an Edomite, the chiefest of the herdsmen that belonged to King Saul. All right, so that word there, Edomite, is a mistranslation. And you'll get an understanding of why that is a mistranslation after I finish with this particular video. I'm giving you the breakdown and the understanding of that. All right, so what you got to do, you have to go into the Hebrew and you can get some clarity and some understanding on why that verse is mistranslated, as well as other verses that have the word Edomite when it should be Aramaean or Syrian. All right, so if you look at this word Aram, which means Syria, you see that it has the Aleph, the Rish, and the Mem, the A, R, and the M. Aram, or Syria, or Syrian. That's what this Hebrew letters interpret into. Okay, so now this is the word Edom or Adam, and you see it has the A, the Aleph here, the A, and it has the Daleth, the D, and the Mem, which is the M. So that's A-D-M. Now you can look at these two words, and you'll see that the Hebrew letters for these two words are almost identical. The only difference that will occur is in the second letter. As you look at these two words, you'll see they are almost identical. The first letter is the same. The second letter is almost identical. You just that the R here, the Rish, is curved. Whereas when you're looking at the second letter, the D, you see that the D here has a different shape. So that's A-D-M, Adam or Edom. So those two words, Adam and Edom, Adam and Aram, those are the same. Those are the words that get confused and get mistranslated. And they bring in confusion on this particular topic here. So that verse in 1 Samuel 21:7 is saying that this particular guy, Doeg, he was a Syrian, not an Edomite. All right, so we're going to get the Strong's Concordance now, the testimony from the Strong's Concordance. And that word Aram in the Strong's Concordance is the number 726. And if you go down and you pull up that Strong's Concordance, if you have a Bible with the Strong's Concordance, you can look in the back of the Bible and look at that number 726, and you'll see for yourself that it has listed there a clerical error for Edom and Edomite, as in the margin, Syrian. See Hebrew, Edomi. So it says Edomi as an Edomite. So it's a clerical error for the word Edom. So whenever, not every time, but a lot of cases, I'm going to give you some of the cases in the scripture where you see the word Edom, it was mistranslated, and it should read Aram. That's why I go back to these two Hebrew words, Aram and Edom. They look almost identical, and that's why during the translation, these two words got botched, and they were switched around, and they bring in a lot of confusion in the body of Hamashiach. But there's no love for the Edomites. The Most High hates them. We know that in Malachi verses 1, chapter 1, 3, and 4. We know that the Most High hates the Edomites. Also in Romans 9 and 13, we see that the Most High hates the Edomites. We also have so many accounts of how these people will be hated forever. They're called the wicked. They're the border of wickedness. It's just so many cases. So there's no love to be shown to them. That's why that verse I'm going to touch on again at the end, Deuteronomy 23:7, that is a mistranslation. It says, "Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite." That verse is really, it should really read, "Thou shalt not abhor a Syrian." Okay. So again, that was 1 Samuel 21:7. Doeg being mentioned there, and he's not an Edomite but a Syrian. Okay. So we had the proof of the Strong's Concordance that shows you that those two words were mixed up, and there was a clerical error a lot of times when those two words were translated. All right, so I'm going to get the account of Josephus now to back up this. So we know that this book here, the book of Josephus, and I'm going to get you an account of Josephus, how he breaks down that same verse that we just read in 1 Samuel 21:7. All right. All right, this is the book of Josephus. Book 6, chapter 12, section 4. And there's the heading there. Chapter 12 says, "How David fled to Ahimelech, and afterwards to the kings of the Philistines and to the Moabites, and how Saul slew Ahimelech and his family." All right, so if you skip down, we see here It says that now there was at Nob a servant of Saul, by birth a Syrian, whose name was Doeg, one that kept the king's mules. All right, so we see here that Josephus gives the account of 1 Samuel 21:7, and it says that Doeg was a Syrian and not an Edomite. So again, we have the Strong's reference that gives proof that those two words were botched, they were switched, they were translated wrong many times in the scripture. And we have the account here of Josephus that backs it up. And remember that Josephus lived in the 1st century, and he had access to the ancient scrolls of the Hebrew text, which is an older translation or an older copy than what we currently have, which our Bibles were currently translated from, which was from the Masoretes, which were a group of Jews during the 7th century AD through the 10th century AD. These particular Jews, they translated the Bible or the Hebrew text, and they gave us the Masoretic text, and that's what we have our Bibles. Most of our Bibles come from the Masoretic text translation. But this particular man, Josephus, his understanding, his account here is older by a few centuries than what the Masoretes gave us. So Josephus's account is more accurate than the translation that we have today in Scripture. All right. So again, I made mention of those Masoretes, and they gave us the Masoretic text, which is the Hebrew translation of the Bible, which was given to us from the 7th century down through the 10th century. And we have other texts out there that's older than the Masoretic, but that's the what most people are going by today. Most Bibles are translated from the Masoretic text. But again, we see that Josephus' account was older than the Masoretic text, and he said that Doeg was a Syrian, not an Edomite. Okay. All right, so next I want to go down to 1 Samuel chapter 14. All right, this is 1 Samuel chapter 14, verse 47. And it says that King Saul took the kingdom over Israel and fought against all of his enemies on every side, against Moab and against the children of Ammon and against Edom and against the kings of Zobah and against the Philistines. And whithersoever he turned himself, he vexed them. All right, so that is showing you that King Saul was at war with these particular Edomites here. So you got to keep in mind, why would King Saul appoint an Edomite to be chief over his herdsmen when he was at war with these particular people? We just read that back in we just read in 1 Samuel 21 that said that he was the chief herdsman here. This guy Doeg, supposedly an Edomite, but he was over the herdsmen for Saul. And this is chapter 21. And the verse that we just read was 1 Samuel chapter 14. So right here in chapter 14, we see that Saul was at war with these Edomites. All right. And then we have the account also of how the Israelites, how I already gave you the information on how the Most High hated these Edomites and these Amalekites. So now I'm going to give you another account. This is 1 Samuel chapter 15 verses 2, and it says, "Thus saith Yahuwah of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have and spare them not. But slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, oxen, sheep, camel, and ass." So this is a command that was given via prophet Samuel to King Saul. And King Saul was to take his army and to go and fight against the Amalekites and kill all of them, killed the old, killed the young, killed the babies, and killed the animals. He was supposed to kill everything that the Amalekites possessed. And that's because the Most High hates these Edomites or these Amalekites. So again, we see here in verse 15, chapter 15, of the hate that was between these two people. And that's why it can even go back to Genesis 25 and 23. We see that these two people, these two nations, they struggled even in the womb. And that's the nations of Edom and Israel. And it's just going to be that until the Messiah returns. Just going to be a constant battle going on between us. All right. Okay, so we're going to go down to verse 32. All right, verse 32, and says, Then said Samuel, Bring ye hither to me Agag, the king of the Amalekites. And Agag came unto him delicately. And Agag said unto Samuel, Surely the bitterness of death is past. And Samuel said, As thy sword hath made women childless, so shall thy mother be childless among women. And Samuel hewed Agag in pieces before Yahuwah in Gilgal. So this is the prophet, the holy prophet Samuel, taking a sword and cutting up the Amalekite king Agag into many pieces. And this is the hate that these two nations have for each other. And the Most High hated these people, these Amalekites and these Edomites. So we are to believe, according to some of these false teachers out here, that this guy Doeg was an Edomite. But we see the hate and the animosity that these two nations have for one another. And how in the world could Doeg be an Edomite after we just seen they were at war with each other in 1 Samuel 14 right here, 14 and 47. And we seen in 1 Samuel chapter 15 that they were supposed to go to war with these Amalekites and kill them all. And even the prophet of the Most High got in on the killing himself, and he hewed the king of the Amalekites up into many pieces. And that's that hate. So there's no way that this Doeg could be an Edomite. So that's just false teaching. And that's why you have to go precept by precept, and you have to have 2 or 3 witnesses. You can't just read a scripture and try one scripture and stand on that one scripture and think that, you can build a whole doctrine off of one scripture. You have to back a scripture up. You can't just have one isolated scripture and try to stand on that one scripture. Okay. All right, so next I'm going to move on to the Obed Edom. So Obed Edom. So some people out here are teaching that this guy Obed Edom was actually an Edomite. All right, so we know the story of Obed Edom. So I'm going to get First Chronicles. All right, First Chronicles chapter 13. So we're going to pick up at verse 9. And when they came unto the threshing floor of Chidon, Uzzah put forth his hand to hold the ark, for the oxen stumbled. And the anger of Yahuwah was kindled against Uzzah, and he smote him, because he put forth his hand to the ark. And there he died before Elohim. Verse 11. And David was displeased, because Yahuwah had made a breach upon Uzzah. Wherefore that place is called Perez Uzzah to this day. And David was afraid of Elohim that day, saying, How shall I bring the ark of Elohim home to me? Verse 13. So David brought not the ark home to himself, to the city of David, but carried it aside into the house of Obed Edom the Gittite. So right here we see that Obed Edom was the one given the charge for taking care of or watching over the Ark of the Covenant. And so these people have the audacity, the gall to think that the people whom God hates forever, the Edomites, that he will put an Edomite in charge of watching over the Ark of the Covenant. It's just ridiculous, a ridiculous claim, and it's just wrong. So we got to make this video to bring out the truth on this particular issue. Okay, so Obed Edom was in charge of that, and he kept this Ark of the Covenant for 3 months in his possession. All right, so now I'm going to bring out the fact that Obed Edom was in fact a Levite and was not an Edomite, as some people claim. Okay, first I want you to remember that the Levites were not given their own land, and the term Gittite, where it refers to Obed Edom being a Gittite, the term Gittite in this particular sentence or verse means inhabitant of Gath, or one who lives or was born in Gath. Okay, so I'm going to give you a chart. See that. All right, this is a chart showing the descent or the line of descent of the Levitical priesthood. If you look all the way on the right over here, we see Merari. And if you go all the way down, these are the sons of Merari. If you go all the way down, you see Jeduthun.